Aries, Ashe. Obatula, Ashe. Nila Hotep, Ashe. Anu, Ashe. Ptah, Ashe. Apollo, Ashe. Da, Ashe. Zaka, Ashe. Shango, Ashe. Makali, Ashe.
Thank you very much for coming out. I'd like to say, as I always say, it's a pleasure and an honor to be able to speak to my folks about some things that are on my mind and that are pertinent to our community. I'd like to thank the Black Star Community Bookstore for, as always, hosting us and giving us a chance to have a forum to be able to relate information to the folks. I'm Kilindi Iyi, independent researcher, head instructor and technical advisor of the Tamarian Martial Arts Institute, and I welcome you all. This evening we're going to be talking about melanin, genes, and DNA. And we're going to be talking about some of the things that may be happening to some of you and that will eventually happen to most of us. There are changes going on in the world. The planet is changing, our solar system is changing, the sun is changing, everything is changing. So in looking at all these changes, we are changing also. We're changing from the inside out, and external forces are changing us from the outside in. Many of the things we look at as far as health problems and things like that we have now, I'm in the process of really investigating those things, because a lot of it is perpetuated on us by chemicals that are in our environment, by the water, the air, all the things that we see as negative happening to us are part and parcel on the things we eat and then also our environment. So we're going to talk a little bit about that. We're going to explore some of those things and look at those external pressures and how they have augmented a lot of that change we're going through. It's kind of like the baby bird in the nest, and we've been kicked out of the nest, and it's at a point now where we either fly or we're going to hit the ground. And many of those external forces are part and parcel of pushing us forward into this new paradigm that we're looking at. Many of the things we see cancers of all different types that we never had before. We see things like high blood pressure, diseases that we are catching because of the things that we're doing. And many times we see these things, we look at in the olden days. I remember reading a book, it's a health book, Back to Eden by Jethro Kloss. And it talked about a man who had consumption, or what in the old days they used to call cancer. And this man took and drank red raspberry tea. And he had this cancer for probably about 40 years. Cancers are a normal part of human beings' existence. Cells go out of whack, and they're cancerous, but the body deals with it because the body has the ability to deal with things that aren't proper inside of it if you work with it. But many times, and today, as soon as someone has a little nodule, a little lump, they automatically attack it and put it in super defensive mode where it goes haywire and kills you. Whereas a long time ago, if you had a lump or a bump or a mole or something like that, you just had a lump, a bump, and a mole. You know, the outside pressures that prey upon us, that they say that one of the biggest problems with black people is high blood pressure, that, you know, we eat too much salt. We, you know, And that's one of the biggest contributors to our high blood pressure. But really, it's stress. Stress coming from our physical environment, stress coming from our ability not to deal with the things that we have to deal with. But our bodies were ushered in under stress. I mean, what's the difference in stress if you were talking about 500 years ago running from a pack of female lionesses who want to make dinner out of you, whereas now we just go into the door and not answering it because the DET man is there, the gas man is there. So our stresses have changed, but our bodies were built to take stresses. Many times we have high blood pressure as a result of our environment. It is the body's mechanism stepping it up to be able to deal with all the things that we deal with, but then we get the blood pressure medicine, and the blood pressure medicine is supposed to suppress our high blood pressure, but it usually, almost 99% of the time, makes it worse, and once you get on the blood pressure medicine, you can't get off of it. So many times the cure is worse than the disease itself that we have. So we should stop trying to cure ourselves with these things that are given to us, because I think that there's a insidious plan on the underside of these medicines when they tell us that we are sick. I think that high blood pressure, number one, they changed the ratio or the number of what high blood pressure was. At one time, it was what we would consider very high, and they said, oh, that's too high, so we're going to make high blood pressure, we're going to change the numbers. So they manipulated the numbers to get more people on the medicine, which means you get the ability then as a pharmaceutical company to make more money, because you manipulated the numbers to say that a person who 20 years ago didn't have blood pressure, high blood pressure, now they have high blood pressure, so they got to buy our medicine. Whereas high blood pressure is just a response to our environment. The body is made to deal with different pressures. The pressure goes up and down all day according to what's going on. Just like in a steam engine. You know, if you're dealing with hydraulics, pressure goes up and down. They have dampers that open up. Whether you want to call them pores or sweat glands, you know, they open up to cool the body, to raise the temperature. All those things that happen in the mechanics that we see in the world happen in the body, and they're happening for a reason. If you don't get high blood pressure, you're going to die. So we have to start looking at how we are manipulated by these so-called authority figures when they come in and say, hey, this is what's happening, this is what we got to do. We have so many TV programs on now that have created experts, that have created the dynamic that we live in. We have emergency on, you know, and you look at those emergency doctors on the emergency doctor program, regular doctors don't talk like that. They don't be into all that jargon and all that kind of stuff. They have to go back and read the book to find out what's going on. But that intricate dialogue and all of the super things that save people are to make you think that these people are much smarter than they actually are. It's no different than the detective programs that come on, the police programs that come on, the judge programs that come on. They put on all those judge programs and court TV so that people will think that the judges have the lawful power to do and say the things that the judges do on TV. Sit down, it's my court. If you don't do this, I'm going to put you out of here. You know, I run this show. This is my court. It ain't your court. It's the people's court. You're just a civil servant up there in the capacity of referee to protect the rights of the people that are coming in there, not to judge nobody. But since the judge on TV say all that stuff, then when you go down to court at the 36th District Court or the 48th District Court, and the judge say, sit down and shut up and take that hat off, and if you say something else, I'm going to throw you in jail, we believe that that is the reality of it because the judge on TV did it. There's been more people caught and convicted because the cop shows than anything else that goes on. Because Quincy did it, or Joe Friday on Dragnet, or something that happened, they say, hey, it must be so. He must have did it because I saw it last Friday, how they caught the person. Police don't do no investigation and stuff like that. The FBI statistics say that 90% of the people that get caught either just get caught, but if you don't get caught there, if you ain't on the camera like somebody standing around looking silly at the bank, standing up in front of the camera with their face, if you don't get caught like that, 90% of the way people get caught is somebody tell on them. That's how you get caught. They don't, all that forensics and, oh, he left an eyelash, you know, on the bed and all that kind of nonsense. They don't be going through all that kind of stuff. They can't do it. But because you've seen the forensic show, and they said, oh, we found an eyelash, and it has his DNA on it, and this puts him at the scene, when somebody who didn't have nothing to do with nothing, when they say, well, we had an eyelash and some fur from his coat, you think that this is something that happens in reality much more than it actually does. So what we're here tonight to look at and explore are these changes that are happening to us. The changes that we are in the midst of because we're changing. You know, babies coming out doing all types of incredible things. I didn't know babies could walk when they came out. But my grandson, just born 5 months ago, when he came out of the womb, he was looking all around, number one. He's like, Lord have mercy, what I got myself into. He's like, oh, what is he crazy people looking at me for? And the midwife took him by the arm and said, let's see, can you walk? And the baby started walking. Put his feet down on the bed, and the baby started walking across the bed. Brand new baby. Baby could hold his head up, talking, all those different things. Now he going around in the dog, he ain't but 4 months old, he sliding around in that walker thing, talking, greet you in the morning, all those different things, because we are changing. And they're coming out already changed. But we who are older people who've been here for a little while are changing. Now in reality, it's hard for us to get past actually what we are, physically. Physically, we're some type of primate, some type of monkey. We're just hairless. Now that's hard for some folks to get to because you say that's Darwinian evolution. No. When they mapped that Human Genome Project, they used to say, well, chimpanzees and human beings have 95% the same DNA. But then when they did the Human Genome Project, they found out that it was 99% the same DNA. That all of the primates have 48 chromosomes and human beings have 46 chromosomes. You say, wait a minute, we're the highest living being on the universe and all that kind of stuff. Well, we should have 48 and they should have 46, and we should have 50 and they should have 48. That's the difference. Those two chromosomes, but we have 2 chromosomes less than all the other primates. Because at some point in time, 2 of those chromosomes were fused together through manipulation. So you have what's called vertical evolution. In other words, you can go and find that, because when they started the Human Genome Project, they figured that the difference between human beings and everything else would be this big monstrous number. The human beings would have like 140,000 different areas of DNA. And, you know, like a fruit fly has like 19,000, and a human being has like 30. A fruit fly has just about half what the human being has. A ground worm has more than that. So the difference between a worm or some yeast or a fern or a mouse is very little as far as genetic material is concerned. And it shows that all genetic material used is the same genetic material. It's the same stuff. And then if we go into the atomic levels, we're all using the same atoms. It's all making the same chromosomes, so it's all the same stuff. That's the God portion of it. And anything other than that being the God portion of it, I don't know what that is. And don't nobody else know what that is. There are many theories out there. Christianity, Judaism, Islam, Zoroastrianism, Buddhism. These are all theories of the deity. They're theories, but the only plausible theory is what we have that we can put our hands on. And that is the atomic structure that underlines everything, that makes everything out of the same stuff. And all of that same stuff is still not equal to whatever animates that stuff. So when we look at what we call a human being, we're looking at some type of primate. We're looking at an animal. We do the same thing animals do. We eat. We defecate. We communicate. We see with eyes and relate to our environment. We relate to it tactically, through smell. So we're no different. All of that, man is the ultimate creature in the universe and stuff like that. You die, a little bit after the rest of the things here. I mean, you know, dogs may make it 20 years and cats, whatever, 15, or, you know, an elephant may make it to 100. So all of this, that we're the greatest, this and that, we just relating to our environment. But there's still something more inside of that that is part and parcel of why we're here tonight to talk about these changes in DNA. Talking about melanin, how that is part of the whole dynamic and equation. And talking about genes. My feeling is that although physically we are working with a primate animal body, DNA is so intricate in its makeup that you can have people who are born from the same mother and father in the same family who are not related to each other. It's just that intricate. It's just that complex. Most of you sitting in here, you ain't like the rest of your family, or you wouldn't be sitting in here listening to this. You'd be out someplace else, doing something else. So you're the different throwback, missing link person in your family. The white sheep in your family. So inside of this DNA, inside of these genes, there's something else that is inside of there, because the majority of DNA that they talk about, they call junk DNA. They don't know what it does. They only know the function of the DNA that makes proteins. In other words, that, you know, that keeps your body going, that keeps your cells being replicated. All the rest of it is junk. But the thing about it is that this junk, which has been sitting there dormant, is now starting to turn on. Because at some time, a long time ago, certain humanoid beings were manipulated. That when I talked about that you have vertical evolution, where you can find remnants of all the other things into the human being, you also have a horizontal insertion of certain genes. In other words, at some point in time, something or someone manipulated those genes to make the difference between running around, you know, dragging your knuckles, living in trees, throwing shit at each other, and coming down off the trees onto the ground, standing upright, making the vision binocular, opposing the thumbs, straightening the spine. That was done through a manipulation. And then a particular consciousness attached itself to that particular junk DNA chain. In other words, although we look the same, we are not the same. I was in London speaking, and we were talking about different Africans, and a tall Maasai brother came to me and said, "Brother, there's only 2 real Africans in the world." He said, "That is the Maasai and that is the Twa, or the Pygmy." And I said, I said, "You know something? You're right." I said, "You're right." He said, "You and me are not the same." I said, "You're right, we're not the same." Just as a Nigerian and a Nuba of the Sudan are not of the same family. Of course, we're Africans in the sense of that we're Africans. A Nigerian African and a Sudanese African are both Africans. But as far as being of the same genetic chain, the same genetic line, they are different human beings or humanoids. They're different from each other. Just as I was different from that Maasai man. Different, come from a different place, attached at a different time. Because we all had points in time when we attached to the so-called human DNA chain. Because we came at different periods of time in the long time of the sojourn of human beings on this earth. You had people that looked all kind of different ways in the olden days. And I always try to look at it because there was this episode of Popeye where Popeye was fighting Sinbad, and Sinbad was Bluto, or Brutus. And they went to this island, mysterious island. They had a man on there with 2 heads. Yeah. And Popeye hit one of the heads, boom, and a knot grew on the other head, a knot grew on it. And you say,